Malachi chapter number 1, please. Malachi chapter 1. All right, starting a new book. Continuing on here, most of our summer schedule's over with, and so it's time for a new book. Now we finished Zechariah. We're wondering, okay, so what about some of the other books? There's a few books that we skipped. Now we've been going through chronologically through the Old Testament. As far as books of history, you have Ezra and Nehemiah that are recording information that go next to each other. So Ezra, the book of Ezra, for instance, covers Zerubbabel and when they come back from exile. Now, just really quickly to go back, they had gone into exile. They were there for 70 years. They come back under the leadership of Zerubbabel. And I don't know why Zerubbabel did not become a more popular name. It could be because it's Zerubbabel, and that's just kind of confusing. My grandmother's name is Maria Aurora Mendoza, and anyways, keeps going, but long name. But anyways, we had named our children looking at possibility of honoring grandparents with middle names, stuff like that. And so our family said, we were talking, well, maybe Aurora. And people said, oh yeah, it's a beautiful name. Aurora would be, like Sleeping Beauty, whatever. And anyways, my wife said no, because it's hard to say. Aurora. And so, anyways, if you think about it too much, it can be challenging. So maybe Zerubbabel. People were like, no, not Zerubbabel. So I'm spilling my water everywhere. Sorry about that. So, anyways, Zerubbabel. But Zerubbabel was a very, very important character. And as Ezra starts out with it, the first half of Ezra is really about the leadership of Zerubbabel. Ezra comes in later. He's sent in actually with permission and also decree of the king to show up, and he's going to teach them. And much of the teaching, of course, has to do with build and how important it is to build that temple. He chronicles the fact that Zechariah and Haggai are two prophets that are going to come in, and they preach to build the temple. Do it. This is what God said to do. And they're pretty harsh. Haggai especially, very, very harsh. Zechariah, more of a prophetic tone, setting the groundwork for why things will go on in the future. So we kind of skipped over, well, let me take it back. We skipped over Haggai, not because we were trying to miss it, but there's the overlap of the two prophets at the same time. So with Zechariah. The other one that we didn't hit is Nehemiah. We may go back to Nehemiah, but Nehemiah is going to cover the next chronological time frame, so the next dates where after they've rebuilt the temple, which is what happens in the book of Ezra, then they have to build the city, which we're talking about the city walls and things of that nature. That's going to be what takes place. Now, we haven't hit Nehemiah, but we are going to go to the book of Malachi next, all right? So anyways, if you're looking for reading in between Zechariah and Malachi, Nehemiah. Nehemiah is the other book. It's going to chronicle as far as what happens. Great, great, great story. There wasn't a set agenda for why I'm not doing Nehemiah. I'm just not, all right? So eventually we'll get to Nehemiah at another point. I do remember, random story here, I thought I'd just mention it. I remember our church as a teenager. I was probably 17 years old, maybe 16, and our church had, I was 16, first time I ever preached. But the pastor said, we're going to have a popcorn preaching service where people are just going to stand up and they get to preach. Now, what happened is we ended up having 9 guys that wanted to preach. So he's like, it's probably going to be a really long night. So what we did is he designated several people per night, and I got to preach on the first night with a couple others. But on one night, there was several people that preached, and they all preached from the book of Nehemiah about building. And anyways, it was a neat story. This is completely random, but anyway, very encouraging, very, 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 I guess, motivational. I don't know if that's right, but regardless, what the whole point of that is it exhorts us into doing what we're supposed to for the Lord. So anyways, now we're in the book of Malachi. Couple things. The reason I mentioned that is because in the book of Ezra, they have rebuilt the temple. They have a foundation. They've built the temple. God sends Haggai and Zechariah, and this really, really powerful preaching that takes place and prophecies that are given that, hey, God is going to do everything he has promised. This kingdom is coming. It's like, oh, but things are going well. Things are not going very well. Well, yeah, it's going to take some time, but God's got a plan how he's going to enact. He's going to make it all happen. So build that temple. And anyways, if you remember earlier on in the book of Zechariah, they were told that they were supposed to put these crowns up that would be a sign of things to come. Joshua was going to wear them, and which is the high priest during that time, and demonstrating the things that were going to happen. And so, anyways, lots of little challenges here, big challenges here, and explaining, detailing a lot of details as far as what's going to happen in the future. And so surely with this type of preaching, they're changed. Israel is changed. Now, one thing that you find here in the book of Malachi is there's going to be a reference to Israel specifically, and it's going to be in a broader reference, which is a little different than some of the references to Israel before. Oftentimes you'll see it even in Zechariah, in Joel and things like that, where it will, by the way, Joel's another book that we missed, which is it's a phenomenal book. But anyways, the references to Israel is normally having to do with which tribes? The northern tribes. But yet when we get to Malachi, it references Israel as the whole, as the country, as the nation. And it's going to reference it as a seed of Jacob specifically. It's going to be a determination between Jacob and Esau. So we know it's talking about the tribes of Israel, even though the northern tribes haven't been around for a couple hundred years by this point. And so it's going to be referenced there as a whole, though. And so this is a little bit unusual, but he's going to be giving a lot of prophetic elements. Things are going to be happening in the future. In the book of Malachi, we're going to see things referenced in regards to the coming of Jesus Christ, about John the Baptist, about what he's going to do with that. We're going to talk about a number of things in it. And unfortunately, the book of Malachi tends to only have one reason why oftentimes we preach in independent Baptist churches, and that has to do with tithing. We'll get to tithing. That's a rebuke that the Lord has in the book of Malachi. But some people are like, oh, that's like the only verse in the book of Malachi. Or maybe two things. Tithe and Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. All right, so maybe we'll have those types of things. But there's a whole lot of Malachi. And I'll be honest, I have not really heard much on Malachi, like at all, ever. And so... So anyways, blank slate, I hope it's a help to you. Maybe you're very, very familiar. That's wonderful. I have heard a few references. Typically, chapter number 1 is where you hear some of it. But anyways, let's start here. This is about 100, if I had to guess, about 130 years after they've been set back from Babylon. The reason I have to guess that is having to do with the timeline of when they build the city walls and stuff like that. And so anyways, with that, there's the excitement. There's a generation that's come back, and they've returned from exile, and there's the sorrow of things aren't going well. But if you remember when they got back there, by the time Ezra starts preaching right there in the middle of the book of Ezra, Zerubbabel had led a group that had built the foundation. They were exciting. They're praising God. They're crying in happiness and crying in joy, and things are going well. But then a few years later, Ezra shows up, and they haven't built it still, and it just seems like everybody's doing their own thing. Now, that didn't take very long. So Ezra starts talking about Haggai and Zechariah. Ezra starts preaching and teaching the Bible everywhere. Everywhere. In fact, it's considered that's the start of the synagogue system, where they started teaching specifically about the coming Messiah and kind of the forerunner idea that there was one coming to prepare the way of the Lord, and Jesus is coming, or the Christ is coming. And so there's all those references as far as what's going to be happening. But with all of that laid out there, the work, the layout and the mechanics and the pieces all being there didn't change the heart of the people. And sometimes we can have everything right. I mean, seemingly we can have right. For instance, we have the right music, we have the right standards, we have the right Bible, we have the right program, we have the right church, we have the right name. And yet what happens still is that the heart of the people is what matters most. And what happens is the heart of the people is something that God did not get a hold of. While he was reaching out to them, they didn't respond in the same way. And so the excitement of all of the things that were happening didn't continue. And so finally, 130 years later, Malachi shows up on the scene, and Malachi starts to preach. Now, the Bible describes it, again, in a term that you may be familiar with as the burden. Look at verse number 1. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. Now, Malachi, we don't know much about him. Malachi is an unusual individual in the sense that there's not even much written about him in like vague terms. So oftentimes you can find stuff in histories about the other prophets and sensational stories. Malachi doesn't even have those. I mean, Malachi, here's what we know about Malachi is his name. And the other thing is the word Malachi literally just means messenger. That's pretty much it. And so, or my messenger. And so this is the messenger of God in essence. And so Malachi, it's possible that his name is not even Malachi. It's possible that literally this is just a title name for whoever's writing this, that basically saying that this is God's message. So my messenger is giving this. So who am I? I'm nobody. I'm just a messenger of God. That would be the idea here. It could be that's literally his name, Malachi. But the point is that there's a messenger he's going to send, and he gets right into it. It's not like Paul where he gives, a whole intro. Let's get started. Now, here's what's going to happen when we get started. We're going to find the book of Malachi broken up primarily into 6 portions. It's only 4 chapters long, so it's not very long, but it's broken up into to 6 portions. And what you have is that God is going to tell or there's going to be an exchange, I guess you should say, of an accusation or a statement that's going to have a response. And so there's a statement, response, statement, response. Not all the statements are made from God. Some of the statements are made from the people. And so the people will ask questions. The people will ask about why they should even serve God, about is this even practical, and God is going to specify why. So anyways, the first one is going to start off with the statement that God has loved us. And then there's going to be a response there from the people of Israel. Look at verse number 2. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Now, he's speaking to Israel, this nation that has been regathered in this place. They've been gone for a while, come back for over 100 years now. And he tells them, just to start this off, he says, I have loved you. Now, what he's saying is at the point which you're hearing this, God's love has been apparent. And so there is this statement that is made by God to them. The message that's in here is saying that I have loved you. And so the response to that is an interesting one, because notice the way that they come back. It says, I have loved you, saith the Lord, yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Wait a second. God, you say you love us. Really? How so? How in the world can you say, God, that you have loved us? To me, it reminds me of the state of the day where we hear about people not believing in God. Why do they say, one of the most common reasons I hear about people not believing in God is because they have believed in God, but yet they say, well, you look around, most of them will speak very anecdotally. In other words, they've seen some experience that changes their mind. That because if there is this loving God, then why are there bad things that happen in this world? You ever heard that before? How could there be bad things happen in this world if there really is a loving God? Now, we understand that God is love, but He is far more than that, isn't He? Now, love is the relational aspect. While He's holy and He's judge and all those things, love transcends our human interaction in the sense that He descends, not He doesn't give up His holiness, but love is what allows that interaction then with God. That's the giving of His Son for us to make amends, for our sins to be removed, so that way we can have a relationship with God. So love is an incredible part of the person of God, that He is love. And that's why we're able to get saved, because He loved us. You see, God without love would still be holy. I mean, He would still judge sin and do all those things. But in His love, He's able to make a decision to send His Son to redeem us. That's what allows us. So it's wonderful. And so with this, though, He says, I have loved you. Now, He's speaking to the nation. He said, look, nation of Israel, I have loved you. Now, this is... there's going to be a lot of little asides on this message, and so you kind of just bear with me on this one. But He says, I have loved you. In this revelation of Himself, He says, I loved you. But the question that He says is He reads into their hearts, and it says, you have said, yet ye say. In other words, with this, there is that overwhelming understanding that God has loved Israel. And you see that throughout the scriptures, which is interesting because they have a lot of scripture teaching going on throughout the land. In fact, we'll see this later on, that they have preachers that are preaching it. You have individuals that are speaking about it. You have a sacrificial system that's going on. And so there's a general knowledge that God loves them, but the way they're living is such a way that God interprets what they're doing as a statement of response, that you don't believe it. That's the idea, that they don't believe that God loves them. And unfortunately, that's something that can happen to any one of us. For instance, you may be going through a difficult time, or maybe you've gone through a lot of difficult times. And so the question is, we would say, for God so loved the world, and that we love God. The reason for that is because He first loved us, and the love of God commended toward us. And then here is the love of God. And we find all sorts of verses that talk about the love of God towards us. And yet we say, okay, I believe that by faith, but boy, it doesn't feel like it. I'm going through this, I'm going through that, and I'm having these struggles, and is it even worth living for Him? Is it worth giving up these things and doing these things and sacrificing? Is it worth it? And anyways, He's addressing it in this manner. And so He's going to talk about it, and look at the way He responds. And this is an incredible response. Wherein hast thou loved us? In other words, prove it, God. And so here's His proof. Ready? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord, yet I have loved Jacob. Now, some of you are like, okay, so where are you going with this? At first, I'm like, okay, so there's been some kind of love shown to Jacob. What does this mean? We learn a lot about love and hate in this part. The passage here is going to start speaking back to their history, but it goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 25. In fact, you're welcome to turn there. Genesis chapter 25, you're welcome to stay if you want right where you're at. But Genesis 25 is going to tell us the story of how this all started. and their nation specifically in the determination of it. And so, for instance, Jacob and Esau are brothers, right? So there's a bloodline that's together, and they are children. They're twins born to who? Anybody remember? To Rebekah and Isaac. Good. So there's specific details. And then Isaac's dad is who? Abraham. So you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob and Esau. All right, so together, Jacob and Esau, that's the next generation. Now, in that, we have to understand God makes promises to Abraham, talking about his seed, but then in Isaac, he gives promises, and then in Jacob, there's going to be very specific promises that it's going to be through your seed, which is important because he's a twin. And so it's not like he had a bunch of other siblings. I mean, there were siblings more than likely, but we have to understand Jacob and Esau, they were twins. They would be contending for who would be in charge, who would get the family line, who would get the blessing, who would get the inheritance. And on top of that, he's not the oldest. Now, how far was he not the oldest? It was pretty quick. But the point is that regardless, he's still not the oldest, and that would have been considered as an important thing. Look down to Genesis 25, verse number 20, or you can listen along if you like. It says, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her. The idea is that they fought inside the belly. All right, so they're fighting. And anyways, maybe it's a fight for space or whatever it was. But and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. In other words, the way I'm imagining this is these kids are not letting her sleep. And I remember my wife with her pregnancies that kids would move around and stuff like that and wake her up or whatever. Well, anyways, the two of them are really having at it. All right. So while she's still pregnant with them, so she says, I need an answer. So let me talk to God about it. So she goes and she asks. So she inquires of the Lord. She calls on God about it. And so, anyways, verse number 23. And the Lord said unto her, what's the next word? Nations. This is incredibly important, by the way, because if you look at this and you think only individuals, then this passage, Romans 9, becomes very incredibly confusing. A lot of doctrines of election, as far as an election for salvation or damnation, come from this. But he gives us the background here in Genesis 25. These are two what? Two nations. What are the names of the two nations that are going to be listed here? It's going to be Jacob and Esau. Now, we know them as two other names for nations, and that's Israel and Edom, or the Edomites and the Israelites, right? But the nations are called by the individual names. In the book of Romans, chapter number 9, it's going to describe, once again, Jacob and Esau, but it also has other nations. Anybody remember what other nations are listed in those references? There's another one called Pharaoh. All right, so when you have them, by the way, you'll have other ones in references to the patriarchs before and after in that same passage. But the point on that is that you have individuals that are representing nations. Now, we'll talk more about that, and I'm really just not necessarily going for what the message is, but just kind of defeat some other problems that are creeping into churches, as far as mostly with Calvinism, things of that sort. But anyway, so there's two nations. So verse 23, and the Lord said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Now, that's very backwards. Now, it makes sense that your children will start whole generations of people going from them. Family lines go separately, hopefully. That's what they're supposed to do. I lived in Alabama for a while, and we had some weird things happen. But the point is that they're supposed to go in two different directions, right, as far as family lines go. And it would make sense that one would be greater than the other. That happens. Some will have more, some will have less, some will be wealthier, some will be not as wealthy, and you'll have different things going on, and that's fine. But he's saying, what he's pointing out, though, is that the elder is going to serve the younger. And once again, he addresses this as nation. So it's not just that Esau is going to serve Jacob, but the nation of Esau will serve the nation of Jacob. And so the Edomites will serve the Israelites. Look down a little bit further. And when verse 24, and when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. I love that the Bible describes it. I don't know, I've never studied out like why that's so important, but it was important, apparently, like it's important. It's a hairy baby that comes out, big red hairy orangutan looking baby that comes out. And they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. And so he's 60 at this point. Now remember, they got married when he was 40, so she was barren for some time. They asked the Lord, and God gave them children, twins here at this point. The boys grew, verse 27, and Esau was a cunning hunter, man of the field. Look down, verse number 28. And Isaac loved Esau. So all things natural, he loves his firstborn, as far as like, oh, okay, well, he seems to be getting the benefit here. And here's why: because he did eat of his venison. All right. So the guy was a hunter, and he liked the food he got and killed, and so he really loved that. Because you know why? Because he likes steak. That's why Esau liked. I'm sorry, why Isaac loved Esau. According to verse 28, Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And so anyways, we won't read the whole passage, but what the Bible's going to tell us in these passages is that Esau, at some points, is given to weakness, in the sense that he goes out and hunts and comes back hungry, and anyways, like he's going to die if he doesn't. Now, it's possible, maybe, I mean, he's been out there, so I know some of y'all watch shows where people go out into the wild for a while and they're almost dying. Well, maybe that's kind of what happened. They went for a while and they were looking for food, and if you don't catch something, you don't just go home like many hunters today do and go to the fridge and eat something. That means you didn't eat. So anyways, he finally came back from the hunt, and his brother's cooking up a dish, and he's got his white apron on, and everything is nice. Flowers are very, the aromas, everything's just wonderful and clean. It's like, oh, please don't make that mess inside my. Well, it's fine, come on in. And so anyways, Esau comes in and asks for, like, hey, can I have some of that? And sure, for the small price of your soul. I mean, for your birthright. And so anyways, he sells him his birthright for some pottage, for like pea soup. Okay, so this is it, lentils. All right, so it's not that, I mean, I'm sure I've had some good lentils, but your birthright, I mean, it doesn't seem, but you know what, he did. And so there's a statement made that this belongs to you. The blessing later on will come in, where he's going to steal the blessing as well. He takes advantage. Esau goes out hunting, and Dad says, I only want one thing, just give me some of that venison, I'll get you your blessing. And so Jacob puts on like leather with the hair still on it, so like a, the wool, and puts that on his arm, and so brings this good food. He's a good cook, apparently, because that's what he does a lot, and gives it to Dad, and says, Dad, and gives him this food, and anyways, gets the blessing, and he feels his arm to prove it, like, yep, you feel like when, like, those really hairy yaks. That's probably what it felt like. And like, yep, that's my son, Esau. And so anyways, he tricks him, gets the blessing. Now, you might think, okay, that's kind of a weird event. But it fulfilled something that God was planning all along. And it wasn't that God did this in such a way, like, oh, I just can't stand Esau, so boom, I'm getting. But what he's saying is there's a plan in regards to the nation. The nation has a national plan in which God has in store for how things are going to work out. And so in regards to this, and you have Esau, which is going to be the father of another nation, the Edomites. And the Edomites are going to be fulfilling a certain role. And what's happening here, something that should be a blessing and goodness for Esau is going to be removed from them. That action is what he's going to describe as hatred. And that's what we're doing. Think about it. When you hate something or somebody, what we normally mean by that is that there's going to be some kind of removal in that kind of case. For instance, as a child, now my opinions have changed since then, but as a child, one of the things I didn't like, I mean, one of my favorite candies were Jolly Ranchers back then. All right, I'm telling you back then because I've said that before, and people like pile me on with candy. And I appreciate that, but don't pile me up with Jolly Ranchers. They're terrible for your teeth. They are delicious. But anyways, I didn't like, though, grape Jolly Ranchers. And I don't know why. I just didn't like grape Jolly Ranchers. And so I would get bags of Jolly Ranchers, and I would pick out all the grape ones and give it to my youngest brother because he liked them. And so anyways, I hated grape Jolly Ranchers. So you know what I did? I got rid of them. They didn't have the blessing of me eating them. And so anyways, they didn't fulfill their purpose for why they were created. And anyways, now I do like grape Jolly Ranchers. Now, but the point on that is that there was some kind of action involved in there. And we do this kind of thing where there is an action, a negative action associated with it. It's not just a sentiment. And this is what God has done. He has removed this, which should have gone to Esau. He's removed it from him. And he gave him, according to what we're going to find in Malachi, he gave him an area that's kind of barren. And the Bible describes dragons there and stuff like that. I mean, it's a pretty significant area. And so anyways, this is what's happening there. They lost a lot of opportunity, but it started back with this prophecy back then. And so what should have been there, God then shows favor. He shows favor specifically to Jacob. Now go back to your passage in the book of Malachi. Go back to the passage in the book of Malachi, because it's going to start addressing a little bit more in this. Obviously, you lose the birthright, you lose the blessing. Jacob's the one that gets it. So it's not just that Jacob got it, but once again, when he gets it, we're representing two nations. So the nation there of those of Jacob, or Israelites, will get this blessing from their dad, which is coming from Isaac, which came from Abraham, so that you have those blessings involved there. And so, anyways, actually, if you're there, let's go to Romans chapter 9 just for a moment, because I think this is important. In Romans chapter number 9, it's going to describe some similar information in this. The passage of Scripture here, if you look down in verse number, Romans chapter number 9, in verse number, I'm trying to think where to start here. There's a lot here. Start in chapter 6 or something. No, so in Romans chapter number 9, we're going to go to verse number 7. Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. Now, I'll talk about that in just a moment, talking about the salvation by faith has been always the plan. Verse number 9, for this is the word of promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And so the promise he's addressing there, in which Isaac is going to be born. Verse number 10, and not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac, in other words, continue on verse 11. For the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. Now notice, verse number 11 says that God calls, and he calls specifically, if you look at right in the middle of verse 11, that the purpose of God according to election might stand. Here's what he's saying. God had a purpose, and this purpose was in regards to these children, Esau and Jacob, Jacob and Esau, that God's purpose would be there. And so in order for the purpose to stand, to be sure, to be completed, God had to apply some element, and we're not going to go into the full study on election right now, but as far as the choose in regards to where these nations were going to be going. This is not signifying, and I want to be clear about this is not signifying that automatically then the children of Jacob would be saved, the children of Esau would not be saved. Because he just said, this is not how it works as far as through this passage in regards to the seed, all right? This has to do by faith. But in this, he describes that there's a purpose according to the nation. Why do we know that? Because Genesis 25 made it very clear. In her womb there's two nations. Now looking down into this passage again, verse number 12, it was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. So anyways, there's a plan there. He further reiterates that in verse number 17. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for the same purpose have I raised thee up. Now, is it just saying Pharaoh only? No, he's talking about the nation of Egypt again at this point. Even for the same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. And so you have Abraham, who's going to have a child that's going to be picked out specifically. It would be Isaac, not Ishmael. And then you're going to have Isaac, who's got kids, and it's not going to be Esau, it's going to be Jacob. And then Pharaoh even has a place in the plan of God in which God raises up Pharaoh. Is it because God made Pharaoh to be this evil and wicked man? People will tell you that's why he was created, to be evil and wicked. God made him to be evil and wicked. Now listen, that doctrine is evil and wicked. That's not something we believe. The point of this, if you look at the story, which again, we take the story as given in the book of Exodus, Pharaoh hardened his own heart. He did. He hardened his own heart multiple times until finally, after saying no, 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 God then hardened his heart, which is the preaching that we've heard since I was youth. And so in that, God took what Pharaoh would be doing, what Egypt would be doing. In fact, the Bible describes and we glossed over it on Sunday about when Joseph's brothers were eating there in Egypt, and Joseph's sitting there watching them. The Egyptians wouldn't eat with the Israelites because it was an abomination to them. But not to the Israelites. The Egyptians said it was an abomination to eat with the with the Israelites. And so there, God raised up that nation to do something, to accomplish his purpose of redemption, of bringing them out of Egypt, to show something. And so he's using it. It's not because he made all these people to be wicked. So anyways, I mentioned that because God had a plan specifically, and that a special plan in this. Chapter number 9 is going to continue in regards to this. We won't go through all of it right now. But in this passage, he explains very clearly that that while they had the blessings, they had to them was they had the doctrine of adoption that pertained to the adoption. Literally, that's talking about the resurrection, the redemption of our bodies, what the Bible describes as adoption. That resurrection that would take place, that was them. They had that information. All of that being to them, he does describe that there's going to be something that's going to take place in regards to the Gentiles. And the book of Malachi actually talks about it, so we'll go back to there. Malachi chapter 1. So we started seeing those. Don't have much longer, but we'll continue here. Verse number 3, and I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Now, we could talk about dragons for a little while, but we're not going to. So go verse number 4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. In other words, when Edom and those countries there were like, well, we may be weak, but we're going to be mighty by our own strength and by pulling ourselves up. We can be rich and strong and mighty. And God says, nope, I'm not going to let your nation do that. They shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, the Lord will be magnified from the border of Israel. And so part of the proof of the fact that Edom, and so we're talking about the geographical area, the nations there surrounding geographical Israel, is that their inability to success, their inability to grow, their inability to become mighty nations right there, is because God won't let them. That's what he's pointing out. And so there upon the borders of Israel, he's saying you can see those nations, they'll never do anything. And so anyways, what he's describing on that end is that God had a special plan there for them. And Malachi is telling them, look, you're right here in a place of blessing. You have this great opportunity. So then he says, I've loved you. I've demonstrated that, and I've demonstrated the distinction of love and hatred there. Love has been for you. Hatred has been for the other people. Look at verse number 6. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith the Lord of hosts, unto you, O priests, that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? And so, here's the second thing. The second message, or the second interaction of the statement with the response has to do with, he's telling to them, to this nation, you have despised my name and defiled my temple. And they respond, like, how? How did we do such a thing? Now, the reason for the how is because they have a temple, they're worshiping, they're doing sacrifices, their priests are doing stuff. And anyways, what he's going to tell them here, this specifically, is going to have to do with the spiritual leadership of the nation. Now, this is hugely important for a couple of reasons. One, it translates very well to what we're doing. But what he's going to explain is that you are not doing things the way you're supposed to. You have despised me. Now, the word despise would be different than the word hatred, and that despising here is demonstrating that sort of indignation of a heartfelt sentiment of not liking. All right, this is something that you are demonstrating, that there is a despising of you have a sort of hatred, the way we would use it, of an emotional response toward me. And you're saying, so they're saying about this, wait, you're telling us, God, you're telling us that we don't like you, and that we are against you, and that we hate you, we despise you. And yeah, how so? So he offers it, he explains it. You notice in verse number 6, right before the end, it says, O priests that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised you? Who is he speaking to? He's speaking to the people that are supposed to be leading in all these things, the priests. Verse number 7, ye offer polluted bread upon my altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? And that ye say, the table of the Lord is contemptible. I don't know the term polluted. I've played with several ideas as far as what it can mean. What he explains to them, though, is that when you're bringing the bread, the Bible describes the bread element, the food that would be brought there to be offered before the Lord, and that there was a purity about that. There's not a lot of stipulation as far as how it's supposed to be done, but it had always been regarded as very, very special, even to the point where, like, David goes in to get something to eat, and the priest told him, like, well, okay, you guys have to have been celibate for some time and clean before the Lord. You guys are good, and so this has to be right. But in this case, he says, hey, when it comes to you priests, you offer polluted bread. Your bread has been tainted. What's it tainted? Wait, what are you talking about? We're going through the ceremony. We're doing the right thing. And he said, listen, what's happening, though, is that the reason it's polluted is because the table of the Lord, doing this work with fellowship with God, is contemptible. Even in the practice of worship where you offer this, and by the way, this type of offering, sometimes we only think of like blood sacrifices where they kill oxen and other animals. The bread aspect of it was a type of sacrifice that was done that was demonstrating the fellowship with God. This is the closeness and the communion we have. And what they're saying is it's contemptible. We don't like doing it. It's a bother. We don't enjoy it. It's like, fine, I'll do it. There we go. There's a story about Martin Luther going to, not like Martin Luther King, but 1600s Martin Luther, that 1500s Martin Luther, that he goes to the Vatican, and he's hoping to hear some true religion. He was lost and goes there, and he hears them doing the communion as far as the Lord's table with the wafer and the drink, and they're doing it in Latin. Well, he understood Latin, and a lot of people didn't understand Latin. And as he was listening, they're expecting like this really holy place to be there at the Vatican. The priest is doing it, and it says that basically, now they believed that the wine would turn into the literal blood of Jesus by this blessing, and they take part of him, and the body, the wafer would turn into the physical flesh of Jesus, and they would partake him. We don't believe that. It's called transubstantiation. That is a no-no doctrine, all right? That's a bad thing. But anyways, the priest there says, basically, this blood's going to stay blood, and this wafer's going to stay wafer. But he said it in Latin, so most people didn't understand. And Martin Luther's like, wait a second, isn't this supposed to be like holiness ground zero? And this is where it's supposed to be. And so, anyways, things weren't right. And anyways, this is what's happening. He's saying that you guys are doing these holy things, but you find it contemptible. This isn't honor of me. It's just lip service. You're not doing it right. All right, so that's the table of showbread, the table of fellowship there in regards to sacrifice. Verse number 8, and if ye offer the blind for sacrifice. So now we talk about those sacrifices. If you offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And if you offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? What he says here is basically when you're bringing these sacrifices, they're supposed to be without spot, without blemish. These are supposed to be your very best. And here's what you're doing. You're taking your animals that are blind. So what this means is that they're tainted in some way. They're not whole. They're missing something. There's some indication this could possibly mean like these are your animals that are old and they're losing their sight, in other words. And so you're offering them up. For instance, some of you have had dogs where they start losing their sight towards the end. And well, anyways, and you're giving up animals that you're not really going to use them for much. And so, but you're sacrificing them. Is it really sacrifice? And then he says, when it comes to what about the ones that are lame and sick? They're supposed to be without spot. They're supposed to be your best, and you're offering them. You're giving me leftovers. And we do that. In fact, with church, we get stuff donated to the church all the time. Now, sometimes it's good. People are very gracious, but we do, with some frequency, get offers for, like, remnants. We had somebody, like, really persistent on wanting to donate us some carpet because it would be a blessing to them. We would be able to pick it up. They would get a tax deduction, and we'd get carpet fragments that were too small to do anything with, and they were like weird pieces and different colors, but like, oh, well, in case you have a remodeling project, like I don't have hallways in that shape, or that I'm gonna part of the way there, and like they're discontinued things, and like, oh, but we want you to have it. Brand new carpets are wonderful. No, you just want a tax deduction. And we have people give us old broken things all the time. Oh, the kids would love this. I mean, I know it's sharp because it's broken in half, but hey, this would be wonderful in the nursery. No, this isn't good. But people do that because, we just want to sacrifice unto the Lord. And really, I don't want to have a yard sale. That's what we're saying. And so anyways, that's what happens, and we give up whatever's remaining. And what he tells them, though, is in your service for God, in your service for me, for the Lord, is what he's saying, is that you're giving me the leftovers. Can I encourage you about something? When we do things for God, we do things for God because he's first. When we go to church, don't pay attention to a lot of those modern calendars that have the workday start, where the week starts on Monday, and it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend is Saturday, Sunday. Remember that when a Christian thinks about what we're doing for a week, our week starts with Sunday. the reason this is important is because our very first day of the week, we come to church and we worship, not because it's the end of our weekend, because it's the beginning of our week, and we're saying we're starting with worshiping and getting equipped and being edified in the house of God among God's people. We start that way. We give him our first. We don't give our offerings. We don't give our tithes at the end of the week. We bring them on the first day of the week. That's the beginning. And so what we're saying with God is we give him everything first. And so let me encourage you, when you serve him, don't serve him out of your whatever's convenient. Don't serve him out of your convenience. Serve him out of your first fruits. That may be the first fruits of your time, your talents, your ability. You give him your first. That's what should be done. And what he's saying with them is, you're just taking whatever just for the sake of doing it. And we'll fill it in whenever we can. If anything else comes up more important, for instance, there's a game we wanted to watch, a TV show that we want to watch right when it's being played as opposed to TiVoing it and watching it later, what we'll say is we'll give up God whatever we can fit in for him. And anyways, that's what the priests are doing back then. And God says it's polluted. It's distorted. And then he gives an illustration. In the middle of verse number 8, he says, offer it now unto thy governor. All right, so you're going to go bring it to some royalty here. All right, imagine, if you will, if Governor Holcomb was here. We're like, all right, we're going to, as a church, we're going to give him something. The way you've been offering stuff to God, if you had to put that into some kind of material thing, for instance, it's a gift now, and you use the same effort that you've been serving the Lord with to make that gift, would you offer that to Governor Holcomb? Would you offer that? Well, that'd be kind of embarrassing. I mean, I might work on it a little bit harder. I make it look better. I might put a little bit more money into it. And I started thinking about it ahead of time. He's saying, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Before a governor. It says, will he be pleased with thee or accept thy person, saith the Lord of hosts? You think he's going to be impressed by your half-hearted effort to give him some gift? Not at all. It won't impress him at all. And so for them it would be food, literally. So you're giving this food to the Lord, and you say, all right, you prepared the same meal for the person in charge, the governor, like the mayor of Jerusalem. He's not going to like it. Is he going to be impressed by you? Not a chance. And yet you think you're impressing God. Verse 9, and now I will pray you, beseech God that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been by your means. Will he regard your person, saith the Lord. And he's saying, when you do your half-hearted efforts for God, you think God's going to look at you in some way that he's going to think, oh man, he really did a great job. I want to bless him. I want to answer his prayer. I want to do so. I just think he's so wonderful because he gives a nominal effort at doing things for Jesus. And he's saying, obviously, that is not good. And so the priests are prioritizing human relationships in the sense that they honor people. They honor men more, the governors of the land, more than what they do for God. They have a careless attitude in worship. Look at the next passage in verse number 7 is, let me go back through. Careless in the sense that God is the Lord, master, and yet he's not being served properly. Verse number 7 is the polluted offering. They're careless in their act of worship. And verse number 10 talks about the career ministers and what the problem is here. Who is there even among you that should shut the doors for naught? Here's what he's saying. How many of you would serve the Lord if you weren't being paid for it? That's an interesting thing. You're thinking, well, okay, Pastor, you're saying this and you are paid. That's true. That's true. I'll be honest. My wife and I talk about it, and we're not trying to scare you, but we oftentimes think of persecution in the future. So how are we going to go about ministry? We've talked about like our housing situation. What do we do then? And in this type of situation, honestly, our thought is like, the goal is we have to perpetuate ministry. Not like, well, if the paycheck's not there, then I just can't serve the Lord. It shouldn't be that way. But the reality is, we need to make sure that we're doing this because we're just serving God. Ultimately, for any of us, some people will not do certain things if they don't get recognition. They won't do certain things if they don't feel like maybe somebody else can do it better, and so they wouldn't be the best at. Well, here's the thing: we just do it only for the Lord. There's a priority there, and what they have here is people that are doing it only because they get something. Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith the Lord of hosts. Neither will I accept an offering at your hand. You're only doing it for the money. Verse number 11. You have the superiority that's presumed here. This is powerful. We'll be done with this next portion, going down to verse 14. For from the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. Now, where is he talking? Well, we see this all in Romans chapter 9. Romans chapter 9 is Malachi chapter number 1, as far as what is being taught here. And so what he's saying is you have profaned, you have cheapened, you have made the name of God as a common everyday thing. You have made, I can say it this way for point of application, you have made Jesus cool. And he's just kind of like one of the things, like, oh, this is who we are, we're great. And you think you're better than other nations because you know about God. And you know about serving him. You know about Christ, the Messiah. And this is great. This is wonderful. But here's the thing. God's saying, I don't need you. I don't need you as a nation to do this. I will do this in a way that all the world's going to hear about it. Verse number 12. Actually, I didn't even finish verse number 11. Middle of verse number 11. In every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord. I do believe that incense being offered before him has to do with prayer specifically. We don't burn incense, for instance. The incense of the Old Testament represented the prayers that were made up to God. For instance, when Zechariah, for instance, is burning incense in the prayers of Israel before the Lord, in the book of Matthew, or in the book of Luke, same idea here, prayers. And so prayers will be made directly to God everywhere. There's he's saying, like all over the world by all the Gentiles, not just the Jews from there that have gone everywhere. Verse 12, but ye have profaned it, in that ye say the table of the Lord is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Ye said also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith the Lord of hosts, and ye brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick, thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith the Lord? But cursed be the deceiver, which hath in his flock a male, and voweth and sacrificeth unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Here's what he tells them. He says that you guys are so weary, like it is so hard to serve Jesus. It is so hard to do this stuff for him. This is your job. You do it. This is what you're designated to do as priests. You were born into this. You have a family that's in this, and you're designated in these groupings and these circles and these rotations. You do this for me. And you do the minimal effort, and you're like, oh, it's so hard to do a minimal effort for God. And here's what he says. Woe unto you if you have a flock of good stuff, and you get the cheapest one possible, the one that's messed up, and that's what you offer the least to God. He says, I'm a great king, and you serve me like a great king. And what he tells us here, he gives us a few things. One, he starts off the reference in verse number 11 with among the Gentiles, among the heathen, in verse number 14 about the power of God. He's referencing that's going to happen. Basically, and just to shorten it to a quick statement, the concept here is the great grafting in that we see about in the New Testament. And with this, what we have is this opportunity in which we're seeing that God is going to do these things everywhere. And they're saying, oh, but we've got it all together. And God's saying, no, you don't. You're doing things, but not the way you're supposed to. You're not serving me with gladness. You're not serving me with everything you've got. And he said, for them, here's what I'm going to do. I've got a plan of how I'm going to execute these things in the future. And that's what we see there in the book of Romans, book of Galatians, book of Ephesians. We see all these things that are referenced there. So anyways, in this passage of Scripture, he talks about then why we ought to give everything we've got. He's a great king. And the way he says it is not just like, oh, well, think about me. I'm great too. Because that's kind of how we see Jesus. They're like, oh, he's great. And this really passive guy who's, he's great too. We should think about doing a little. He says, no, I'm a great king. The force in which he says, verse 14, cursed is the deceiver, which hath his flock a male, and voweth and sacrificeth unto the Lord a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Does that sound like I'm great too? No, he says, I am it. I am God, the great king, and you should be serving me like that. I love the way he just puts it out there. For us as a church, let me remind you that we are a nation of kings and priests. All right, we have this job to do. We have responsibilities where we ourselves light the incense. We make our prayers directly to God. We are serving God. That's what we're doing. And in that work, how is your work? Is it nominal? Yet it's a drudgery. How hard is it to go to church just to come to worship God and learn here? And it's Sunday again. Oh, I got to write out a check. I mean, used to, if you wanted to bring something to the Lord, what you would do is you would take your stuff and load it in the back of wagons, or sometimes carry it in bags, and you would deliver it there. In Alabama, there was a church just outside of the town where I lived in, where they still had a storehouse that people would bring, like the farmers, they didn't make money. And so they would load up their stuff and they would bring it to the storehouse, and that's how they would feed the ministers, the preachers that were working there. That's how they did it. And so it was remarkable. And now we're like, the drudgery. We have online giving, and we're like, it's too much. We want to offer, I'll serve God if I have time at the end of all my entertainment and things. And what he's saying is, like, I am a great king. And your problem is that you're not seeing that. You see, the idea of greatness is going to examine, it's going to demonstrate how great God is. The problem is that we have a lot of other great things. This is kind of I don't mean to be gross by it, but, well, trying to think acne-wise, or how to address it. The issue with acne is not just that it's a red spot, it's that it sticks out. And I remember being a teenager having acne, and I remember one time we were going to have pictures taken. I was homeschooled for a year, and we were going to have pictures taken, and I had a big zit on my nose, like a big one. And so I'm trying to take my picture, and I'm like, how about this? It's like, straighten your head. Like, how about, no, straighten more the other way. And I don't want the picture of that because it's sticking out. And to me, that was a great big zit. And here's the issue. That's what took the most attention. And here's what happens. Sometimes we're like, oh, well, that's the biggest thing in the whole world. And anyways, what we have in our life, we have a bunch of other stuff we think is so great, so wonderful. You know, it's a whole bunch of big, great zits that are sticking out, and we think they're so wonderful because that's the thing that's getting the most attention. I was so concerned about what's sticking out the most that I didn't see the greater picture. And I was such a small person in that picture compared to everybody else that nobody's like, oh, Leo had a zit that's like this big on that picture there. Nobody cared. And I was so concerned about what's sticking out the most. And listen, we're so concerned about what's sticking out the most in our life. We forget about the fact that God is a great king. In fact, he is feared. He is dreadful among the heathen. And he's worthy of our praise. He's worthy of us giving everything we've got for his glory. So anyways, there's much to be said, talking about the Gentile plan in the future and things of that nature. He's going to be addressing that's powerful, powerful stuff, how that works and God's plan. And I mean, it's remarkable. And so anyways, we'll look more at that in the future with this. So anyways, let's go ahead and pray. And we'll have our offering and then our prayer time together. Lord, we thank you for the time you've given. Just sort of the passage here we had in Malachi, the study that we're able to do together. Lord, I pray you to help us. Lord, help us as a people, your children, as we serve you. Lord, as a group of people that have been set aside to serve and to lead and to honor, Lord, to cherish you, to worship, to get to know you, to proclaim your name. Lord, to pray unto you. Lord, I thank you for that. And I pray as your children, Lord, that we would be truly dedicated in the offering that we give of ourselves, a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto you. Lord, our reasonable service. Lord, and what a weariness it was for them. Lord, I pray it wouldn't be weariness for us. And I know it's a temptation for us to be weary by well-doing. God, that we would not be that way as we serve you, Father. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right.